This video will be about document C, which is an illustration from 2009. There is a note that the Nile River flows south to north against a prevailing northerly wind, which blows from the north to the south. And in ancient times, boats traveling upstream against the Nile current used a sail or rowers or both. Boats traveling downstream to the north often just floated with the help of steering oars. The Nile current was about 4 knots, like 4 miles per hour, during flood season, and it slowed down to a sluggish 1 knot during the rest of the year. Okay, looking at our document analysis questions, in this case, it might be easier to pull up the little bar here on the side. Okay, and the first question asks, what is being transported by the barge? Barge is the vessel pulled by the tugboats. We see our tugboats over here, we see the large barge, and we can see that there is some long pointed structure, and there's 2 of them, right? At least it looks like 2 of them. So we're going to guess 2 obelisks, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be correct, right? We're analyzing the document, we're simply writing and identifying what is it that we see, okay? What is likely being carried by the large sailboat? So this was our barge. Okay, over here is our large sailboat. We've got a smaller one back here. Okay, and it looks like there is a giant container of some sort, right, on top of this sailboat. And that really could be anything, honestly. So we could say a container with, they might be trading crops that they farmed. They might be bringing stuff back. Okay, so we can say a container with fresh produce harvested, from the fields that is going to be sold. Okay, and you really don't need to be that specific. Okay, now it says, what direction are the sailboats, barge, and tugs traveling? So all of them are going, in this case, it appears to be downstream, right? But it says that boats traveling upstream against the current used a sail or rowers or both, right? And if they were going downstream, they often just floated with steering oars. So using that information, right, it says a sail or rowers or both, right, as opposed to just floating. We can use context to infer that because we see, these sails and, let me find it, sail, and we have some rowers as well, right here. So if they're going against the current in this case, right, that would mean, right here, okay, that they are traveling upstream. So upstream, and we could say because they are using sails, rowers, and apparently I can't type, and tugboats. Right? Drawing from the evidence in the document, that's not just this picture, right? That's also this note here. But drawing from the evidence in this document, what are 5 occupations, meaning jobs, in Egypt that depended in some way on the Nile River? Well, just looking at here already, right, you have your rowers, you could call them sailors, rowers, oarsmen. You also have, the people that are going to be trading things, the merchants, right, importing and exporting, okay, in addition to the people actually doing, the transport to pull the boats or to make the boats, right? So occupations that depended on the Nile River, farmers, because they're growing their crops, obviously, right? You have rowers, or I believe they call them oarsmen. Okay, you're also going to have your merchants or traders, right? You even have your boat builders, and even your government officials, because they depend on, stuff being traded and sold, right, in order to get paid, right? You can't have taxes if there's no income, and you can't have income if there's no trade, right? You also see people down here that are herding animals, right, or raising those animals, domesticating them for use, right? You could include that if you wanted to, right? But you just need a few answers. Now, lastly, it says, how does this document help you answer the question, how did the Nile shape ancient Egypt? So essentially giving you a hint as to which bucket it's going to go in. Okay, this document relates, I really cannot type, my goodness, the economy, right, because it involves transporting goods for trade, right? We're assuming that there's some kind of trading going on here, you know, because it involves transporting goods for trade, and for being able to, we'll say, transport crops, right? Because the Nile is this very long river, and they could certainly, we'll go back to the map real quick, right? And so this would allow them to take crops from, say, down here in Thebes, you know, up to Badari, right? They didn't have roads, they had boats, and this was like their highway. And that's what I would say for document C.